Hi, this is Luka Doncic,
Hi, I'm Kyrie Irving.
and you're listening to the Mavs Step Back Podcast.
Doncic has the ball, down by 2. There's a switch. Gobert's out there. Doncic maneuvers for the lead. Got it! What a shot! Dallas has taken the lead.
Kleber inbound. Kleber looking in for Irving. Irving for the win! Oh my! A southpaw finish from Kyrie Irving! Just absurd!
How's it going, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of the Mavs Step Back Podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Trigg. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Drew Johnson. You can find us both on X at Dalton_Trigg and my guy DJ at Coach Drew 33. Woo, DJ, we have almost made it through what has been an incredibly long summer, which I guess in hindsight, it hasn't been too long because we did go to Vegas and, you know, free agency was a whirlwind with what happened with Klay Thompson and, you know, all these other things the Mavs did. They got Najee Marshall, Quentin Grimes that was traded for, sent out Tim Hardaway Jr. They got Spencer Dinwiddie in the process, which seems like the most swept under the rug move of the summer, given everything else they did. But we've almost made it. We've almost made it through the dead period because training camp starts in about 2 weeks from now. A little more than 2 weeks, but, you know, about, let's see, I think it's at the very end of this month. So, yeah, a little more than 2 weeks. Mavs will start training camp in Vegas. They're going to get things rolling. They've really already gotten things rolling because, you know, a lot of the guys, not Luka because he's still at home in Slovenia, but, you know, Kyrie, Klay Thompson, Dereck Lively, Daniel Gafford, PJ Washington, Omax. You know, there's several guys that have, you know, already gotten the ball rolling, so to speak, and they've been scrimmaging together. And we're going to get into the Klay Thompson nationwide tour a little bit later in this pod. But I have 2 questions. The opening question for you is, where's your confidence meter for this upcoming season based on what happened last year? I have a good feeling what you're going to say, but that's my opening question to you. And then after you answer that, I'll give mine, and then we're going to jump into Dereck Lively being a potential, you know, defensive player of the year candidate. Maybe not this year, but at some point in his career.
Well, the first question, I'm going to say cautious optimism because you know how I am. I'm always cautious about everything because anything can go wrong. And, you know, in order to get to the NBA Finals, or really even in order to get to the playoffs, so many things have to go right. And what I mean by that is injury issues. We have to be able to keep everyone healthy. I think that is likely the biggest threat to us coming away with the championship. I think that if everyone on Dallas, if everyone stays healthy, I don't want to say we're a lock to win the Western Conference Finals, but I think it's a very, very good possibility. I think it's more than likely, you know, despite what everyone else says.
And more specifically, Luka, right? Like Luka has to be 100% healthy because we saw, you know, even with pretty much everybody on the team having relatively great health in this last postseason run, Luka had the sprained knee and several other ailments he was battling throughout that postseason, and it ended up biting him in the end because, you know, it finally took its toll. And I mean, look, for his first NBA Finals appearance, he had great numbers, but he wasn't the perfect Luka that you had to have to beat the Boston Celtics. And so, I mean, yes, the team in general has to be relatively healthy, but I think Luka is, you know, that needs to be the main focus for the Mavs throughout this regular season because I think they have the overall depth to win 50-plus games, 55-plus games. And I don't think Luka has to play, you know, more than maybe 65 of them. You know,
in terms of wing players, in terms of perimeter players, I think we have exceptional depth. Really bringing in Dinwiddie was just icing on the cake after a real productive offseason. In fact, I would argue that we had the most productive offseason of anyone in the entire NBA. Just given the overhauls that we've done, we probably have the best wing depth in the whole league if what we brought in produces the way it's supposed to produce. Now, crazier things have happened, but if everyone does what they are billed to do, then we have more wing depth than anyone in the league, and that's the fact. Now, besides Luka, in terms of injury importance, the second most important player, I think, or second most important group of players would be the post players, just because our line of depth in that area isn't substantial. You got Daniel Gafford, you got Dereck Lively, both of whom are starter caliber centers. But if one of those guys goes down, you're stuck with Dwight Powell coming off the bench. And that makes me sad.
Yeah. And or even at the, even before Powell, you could, in theory, move Maxey to the 5 and have him play the backup 5 and shift Najee Marshall over as a small ball 4.
Yeah.
You could do something like that, but still Maxey. I mean, we talked about it this last week or two. How much more does he have in the tank? Because he's 32 years old. As good as he's really made his niche in the league by being a 3-and-D forward. I mean, he's very good defensively, very sound defensively. And when he's fully healthy and confident, he can hit threes, but he always gets hurt. Like he's only played 80 games over the last 2 seasons combined. He hasn't played more than 60 games since the 2019-2020 season, and he's 32. So, there's a good track record here to say that Maxey isn't going to be reliable for a full season. So, either way you go, you might can lean on him for a little bit, but you're not going to be able to lean on him for a long time. So I agree. I mean, you got to hope that, if one of your two supremely athletic big guys in Lively and Gafford, gets hurt somehow, you got to hope it's a short-term thing and not something that keeps them out for a big portion of the season, because then, you're really going to have some holes on the back end of that defense. But so talking about Lively specifically, and I mean, I don't even have to tell you my confidence meter, so we're just going to roll into the Dereck Lively stuff. I am full-blown. The Mavs are going back to the finals. Again, I mean, I do think they have to stay healthy, but everybody's got a chip on their shoulder about something, whether it's the guys that were on the team that lost in the finals and got embarrassed. Luka got embarrassed. Kyrie got embarrassed, and he's the long-standing veteran playing against his former team. He has a big chip on his shoulder. Klay Thompson has a chip on his shoulder, wants to win his 5th ring before Steph, Draymond, Steve Kerr, and all those guys. Dinwiddie's coming back. He's going to want to finish the job that wasn't finished in 2022 when they got to the Western Conference Finals. There's just so many stories. In that way, now this team is a lot younger than the Mavs 2011 title team, but in that specific way, like with all the guys coming together and having different motivations, to get over the hump, I think they relate to that 2011 team in that way.
You've got a lot of guys that have something to prove. In fact, I would say pretty much everyone on this team has something to prove in some regard, all the way down to the younger wings that we just brought in. I mean, Najee Marshall, he's got something to prove. People think of him as just merely a role player. He could be something more. Quentin Grimes is coming off of a year that he needs to bounce back from. People kind of wrote him off after a semi-poor showing with the Detroit Pistons, but he only played 6 games for them, and he was hurt. So, all these guys have a chip on their shoulder, and honestly, that alone makes me excited because everybody has something to play for right now, and not everyone in this league can say that.
And those guys are going to get pushed by the guys that are on the back end of the roster, because you have guys like Dante Exum and Omax Prosper who are hopeful to be, big parts of the rotation, establish themselves in the rotation. So I feel like the competitiveness in the practices and everything are going to, play a factor in that too. I think it's going to be one of those iron sharpens iron kind of things.
It's going to be interesting to see who comes out on top on that depth chart. I'll be very interested to see what the rotation looks like. Obviously, you and I, we have our own, hypotheticals. But honestly, some of these guys are so close that the depth chart could change game by the game. I mean, literally, it could, depending on who's practicing good when. I mean, that's how close this team is in terms of firepower. I mean, whenever you're 11th, 12th best guy shooting 49% from the 3-point line, that's pretty good, right? Yeah. So it just goes to show you how tight this is, how tight the race is, especially whenever you're getting down to that 8, 9, 10 spot in the rotation. So it'll be very interesting to see who comes out on top. And guys, there's people down the bench. I mean, people who are going to be playing two ways that may be able to see some time as well. That Sharp kid from Ole Miss,
Jamarian Sharp.
Yeah, if we do have an unfortunate happening in the post, there's a chance that he could see time. And honestly, I'd like to see it just because, not only is he 7'6", he moves pretty decently at 7'6". So maybe that guy gets a chance if, somebody unfortunately goes down. But no, I'm very optimistic about the talent level that we have. It's just the talent has to produce. Yeah. And, I think with everybody having something to play for, that's a pretty big part of it. I also think with having Coach Kidd, I think he's a pretty good motivator. I think he knows how to get the best out of his guys. Obviously, otherwise we wouldn't have been to the NBA Finals this past year. So, I think that all the pieces are aligning just right. We have to execute.
Yeah. And look, it's like to your point of just how deep the roster is now, Jaden Hardy, he didn't play a ton of minutes in the postseason, but the minutes he did play, he showed up in some very important spots for the Mavs in the postseason, especially in the Western Conference Finals against Timberwolves. He shot like 60% from the field and like 55% or something from three in the Western Conference Finals. He only played 10 minutes per game, but still, we know who Jaden Hardy is. He makes the most of his minutes when he's out there. So, a guy like, he's definitely talented. We've talked about it before. He can be a little erratic. He kind of gets too ahead of himself sometimes, which is a good thing. He's eager, but sometimes he's a little too eager and it ends up being a mess. But, there's other times where it's like you need him to be that aggressive and it works out. But, a guy as talented as him, he may not even, be in the rotation at all this coming season. And that's not a knock on him.
No.
That's just a testament to what Nico Harrison has done this summer, building on the roster that made it all the way to the finals last year. So, but yeah, just switching over to Lively specifically, you wrote a very good piece here today on DallasBasketball.com about Lively and some of his playoff defensive numbers. And it has us believing that this guy is a future defensive player of the year candidate. Now I'm interested in getting your thoughts. First, tell us a little bit about those numbers you wrote about. And the second part of that is, how soon do you see that happening for Lively? Because you've been watching Lively for a long time now. You told Mavs fans about this around this time last year. No, 2 years ago now, that he needed to end up in Dallas, and he did. And now it's like he's even shattered the highest of expectations. So, how soon do you see that development happening? And then let's go over some of those playoff numbers that are just outstanding.
Well, I mean, if he can take what he did in the playoffs this past year and make it a consistent thing that he does throughout the course of the regular season, I mean, that's all-time numbers, okay? Like, guys, that's 7 points better than the reigning defensive player of the year. That's insane. That is absolutely insane. If he can do that, not only, I mean, he would have to be in conversation for defensive player of the year. 40. So here are the numbers. in this year's playoffs, he held opponents to a 42.9% defensive field goal percentage. So that means that he held them, like, people were only making 42.9% of their shots whenever they were getting challenged by Dereck Lively at the rim. For context, Rudy Gobert, and I know we love to rip on Rudy Gobert here, but Rudy Gobert was the reigning defensive player of the year. He should have been, but he was. And, we have to give him this. He's a great shot blocker. He's a great rim protector, and he held opponents through the regular season at 49.4%. That means that Dereck Lively was 7 points better. 7 points better than the reigning defensive player of the year. Now, obviously, the playoffs is a much smaller sample size than the regular season, but if we can just do something similar to this, he could be an all-star this year, just based off the defensive prowess alone. And the thing is, there is a shortage of true blue defensive big men in this league. And Lively is sort of the evolution of what Rudy Gobert wants to be or thinks he is. Lively can impact the game on both ends of the floor. And his impact on the offensive end of the floor hasn't even been fully seen by us yet. We saw him hit a jump shot in that in that NBA Finals Game 4. I have reason to believe that actually is more of a commonly seen thing in practice than we've been led to believe, because these are things that he was doing at the high school level. You can go back and you can look at all of his highlights. He was shooting the ball pretty well. Granted, he didn't do it much at Duke, but I do think that is a quality that will surface maybe even as early as this year. I know he's been working on it. There's video evidence of it.
Yep.
So, I mean, if he does have the breakout year that I think he's going to have, that most big men have between their rookie and sophomore year, you could be looking at an all-star campaign for Dereck Lively this year.
I agree. I mean, he got a lot of flack for when he was on that podcast with Theo Pinson. We talked about this on the last pod, and they were kind of ripping on Gobert a little bit back and forth, and some people on NBA Twitter were ripping on Lively like, hey, like, you don't have the accolades, Gobert 4-time defensive player of the year. I don't know how many all defensive teams he has, all that stuff. It's like, hey, you were a rookie. You need to, kind of watch it a little bit. To me, I'm like, yeah, I mean, I respect Gobert's accomplishments. I mean, those are great accomplishments. Like, he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer when his career's over because he has those accolades. But if you can't do it in the postseason, why does it matter?
It doesn't.
It doesn't. And I think if you're Lively, you can talk trash if you can back it up. And he most certainly backed it up directly against Gobert in the Western Conference Finals. And it wasn't even close, DJ.
No.
If he hadn't missed Game 4 because Naj Reid knocked him in the back of the head with his knee in Game 3, it would have been a sweep.
Yep. Yep, it would have been. And that's another reason why I say that the post players are so important, is because we actually saw that firsthand in the playoffs. No, and honestly, people are saying you can't say that stuff. You're a rookie, whatever. Yeah, but he's also the rookie that busted his ass too. Okay, he busted his ass in the playoffs. You can talk, and he's right. He's right. I mean, it'd be one thing if he was just talking out of his ass, but he's right.
It's one thing to be Dylan Brooks and to talk trash and not back it up half of the time. It's a completely other thing for 20-year-old Dereck Lively to talk it after he already proved it. So
Dereck don't talk much. He really don't. He's not really that guy. But I mean, if he feels the need to say something, it's more than likely factual.
He's been feeling himself this summer, and rightfully so, though. I mean, he is on the precipice of really doing something special. I'm super excited to see what he does this next season, because like you said, he has the potential to be an all-star, depending on how things shake out in the West this year, and how high the Mavs are in the standings by the time we get to that point. I'm super excited to see where he ends up. Now, the Defensive Player of the Year thing it's going to be really hard. Like, he's going to have to be like, he's already been great, but he's going to have to be like unbelievable on defense to the point to where it's going to have to overshadow Victor Wembanyama, because
you're literally dealing with the epitome of the genetic lottery right there.
Yeah.
Because Victor Wembanyama was created in a lab specifically to win Defensive Player of the Year awards year in and year out.
And let's be honest, he should have won it last year, but the Spurs record was just so bad that really hindered him. That kept him from winning it over Gobert.
I also thought there was some politics that had to do with it, because I still thought that he was the best defensive player in the league by far. But
yeah, he's unbelievable.
Yeah. In so many regards, he's unreal. But
like, it's going to have to be not only would D-Live have to be just unbelievable on defense, and like I said, he already is, knocking on the door of that anyway. But he would have to. We'd almost have to hope that Victor Wembanyama doesn't play in the required amount of games it takes to qualify for those end of the season awards for him to win it. So, I don't know. I'm not saying D-Live can't beat him head to head, because we've seen it. Dereck Lively has more than held his own versus Wembanyama on multiple
a few times.
Yeah, he really has. But for the course of the season, because Wembanyama is going to be playing 38 minutes a game. And then Lively, with that two-headed monster with him and Gafford, they pretty much split the time, 24-24. And that's good for the duration, for their durability for the whole season. And it keeps them fresh for the playoffs. So we'll see how many minutes they play. We'll see, what kind of stats Lively can put up. But I do expect Lively to be the starter over Gafford. I think he'll secure that spot.
I could see that. I could see it either way. Because, Lively is just so good off the bench, man. He's been so good. And not to say that he doesn't deserve to start, because he absolutely deserves to start. He's absolutely the Mavs' best post player. But some people just play better coming off the bench. For instance, Jamal Crawford, right? So maybe, in this sophomore season, you still see him continue in that role. That doesn't necessarily mean he won't play more than Gafford. That doesn't necessarily mean that he won't be in there during clutch moments, because he absolutely will be.
Maybe he just has this supernatural career parallel to Manu Ginobili since he became the second rookie. He was number 2 all time next to Manu in playoff plus minus for a rookie, which is unbelievable because the Spurs won the title that year. And Manu just went off. So that's how good Dereck Lively was in the postseason.
Yeah.
So maybe he'll just continue that Manu trend and come off the bench. So, but you're right. I mean, it doesn't matter who starts. It matters who finishes. And like you said, he could end up playing more minutes, even though he's coming off the bench. Jason Terry did for years for the Mavs.
Exactly. And look, credit to Gafford, man. Gafford's been great. Gafford goes in there. He does his job. He isn't as versatile as Lively is, but we don't necessarily need him to be. We need Gafford to do exactly what Gafford does. Really tall, athletic things, And
I'll never forget in the first round against the Clippers. I think it was the game. It was the series clinching game 6, where it was still semi-close, like the Mavs hadn't completely pulled away yet, and Gafford just put it into Zubac's chest, just drove into the paint and muscled through him and dunked it. And that was the point I was like, it's over.
Yeah,
it's over. Let's go home.
That's what I'm saying, man. I'm very thankful to have Gafford. He helps tremendously. That's
draft why capital well spent.
Oh yes, absolutely. Between him and PJ Washington, I'd say that we won the trade deadline. If you can win such a thing, we won it.
Well, guys, we're going to take a quick break here and tell you about PrizePicks, and we will be right back. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code STEPBACK and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code STEPBACK on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Okay, DJ. So, jumping back into our final 2 topics here. This one isn't directly Mavs related, but Kevin Durant made it Mavs related for us. He went on a podcast recently. It's a Boardroom. He's partnered with them. I think it's actually his thing. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think it is. But he was on a show with a couple other guys. They were playing NBA 2K. The topic came up about his perfect starting 5. And I'm pretty sure they were talking about 2K. That's if he had to pick a starting 5 on 2K, who would his starting 5 be? But I mean, come on. I mean, if you're putting together 2K lineups, you wish that was a real lineup in real life, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So there were some people online being stickler about that, and I was like, "Come on, man! It's the same thing essentially." But anyway, KD, his starting 5, his perfect starting 5: Luka Doncic, Klay Thompson, himself, LeBron James, and Joel Embiid. So 3 out of the 5, 1 is himself, and 2 of the other 4 is Luka and Klay Thompson, 2 current Mavs. So what do we make of this, DJ? What is it? Is this just, Kevin Durant just showing some random respect for Klay? Or is this, should we put our tinfoil hats on again like we did a while back and make this a bigger issue than what it is?
Don't do that. Don't give me hope. I don't need it. So, you say that it doesn't matter much, like with 2K or whatever, but some players are just better on 2K than others. Even
that is true.
Yeah. I remember an edition of 2K. It may have been like 2K14 or whatever, where Gerald Green was a god. Okay, and Gerald Green, as fun as he was anything but a basketball god. But in this game, he was Jesus Christ. Like seriously, like he was amazing. So, maybe it comes from that point of view. But if we're just talking about straight basketball, KD likes to talk. Okay. Do I hope he would like to come to Dallas? Absolutely. I would love that. And we could possibly make that happen. I mean, you're the money guy. You're the one that knows how to move all that around.
Here's the thing. And I wrote about it today. That's another piece. If y'all haven't read it, you can go to DallasBasketball.com. You can read about DJ talking about the Dereck Lively defensive number stuff we talked about earlier in this pod, and then you can go and read my piece on Kevin Durant and him giving his perfect starting 5. But here's the thing: for that to happen, the Mavs would likely have to trade Kyrie Irving, because that's the only way. And Kyrie Irving plus, so like Kyrie Irving and like Maxi Kleba or something like that. That's the only way it could work. And I just don't see the Mavs having any reason to do that right now, because, Kevin Durant has proven that he can't get over the hump anywhere but Golden State. Now, if he joins forces with Luka and Klay Thompson, maybe that's a different story. But, I also found it weird that, he put 2 Dallas Mavericks that are, 2 current Dallas Mavericks on there, and one of them wasn't Kyrie Irving, who just helped lead the Mavs to the finals with Luka. So you got to wonder if there's still a little bit of I know they're still friends, but he's played with Kyrie before, and maybe he's just like, I don't know if I want to do that again. So
it's interesting that of all the 2 guards in the league, and Klay's great, but of all the 2 guards in the league, that's who you choose. It's almost tin hat worthy. It's almost like he's trying to send a message.
Yeah.
Because, oh man.
Well, and to his credit, that lineup is huge across the board.
It is big.
That's one reason he chose Klay, because he was like, yeah, Klay's like 6'7", and that's all he does is snipe. He just sits there and shoots open threes, and he's big. He's lost a step defensively, but he's still big enough to where he can, guard forwards.
Well, that team would be long enough to where missing steps doesn't matter. They'd be able to cover a lot of ground really quickly. So, as long as Joel Embiid isn't on his soapbox, but that's another discussion.
So maybe that's all it is. Maybe he just, took height into consideration too, because, he left Steph off the list too. You could argue that Steph needs to be on there, the greatest 3-point shooter of all time. But, he's like, what, 6'2", 6'3"? So, I don't know. Anyway, I'm not going to go too far into that because it's not going to happen. I just, when I saw that, I couldn't help but say, that's pretty interesting. He had all the players in the league to choose from, 4 empty spots aside from himself, and 2 of them he chose, Luka and Klay. I thought that was very interesting. And in July there was that rumor that the Mavs were interested in Kevin Durant, and it kind of got brushed under the rug. Like, people didn't think about it, and I'm still not really thinking about it. But when this came up today, that's immediately where my brain went. I was like, oh yeah, I do remember that rumor.
It is interesting. It is
look, if I'm not saying anything's going to happen with Kyrie, I think he's been outstanding. He's been nothing short of delightful his entire time in Dallas. But if something were to happen, then maybe something like that becomes a possibility down the road. I don't know. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope, everybody meshes the way I think they will, and they get over the hump and win a title this year. But, like I said, you never know. But Kevin Durant's also like, what, 4 or 5 years older than Kyrie? Like, Kevin Durant's no spring chicken. He's getting close to the end of his career. So, that's something to consider too. But anyway, I thought it was interesting. That's it. Go ahead.
Kevin Durant is really getting up there. Fun fact, I think were we in 7th or 8th grade whenever Kevin Durant got drafted?
I think it was 7th grade.
Holy hell, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is old because I'm old.
Yep. Yeah, he is, let's see. I'm pulling it up now. He is about to turn 36 in 2 weeks.
He was drafted in 2007. That was that same draft class as Greg Oden and Al Horford. So, yeah, that was forever ago. And Al Horford is still playing. That's interesting. So, you saw that fake tweet go out that Al Horford was retiring, and I got all excited about it. And,
I got the text from DJ that said, "Oh, look at this. This is going to be what, the downfall of the Celtics, Al Horford retiring and all that." And I was like, DJ, it was a fake tweet, buddy.
They got me. I missed a letter. Okay.
You watch it.
It was Legion Hoops. It was Legion Hoop. Like, come on, man.
Instead of Legion, it was Legon.
Really? I didn't even pick up on that either. Jesus.
Yeah. It's funny because, even if you don't follow those accounts, sometimes they'll pop up on the Elon Musk For You page. So you got to watch it.
Yeah. Among other things.
It's a mess.
But
hey, he paid for my lunch today. I got like a $12 deposit from him. So thanks, Elon. Gonna quit my day job and just go off of my $12 a month from X. No, but anyway. So the last thing we're going to talk about here, we've already talked about how Kevin Durant picked Klay Thompson in his perfect starting 5. Well, Klay Thompson specifically has been on this nationwide tour, it seems like. He's everywhere. Every other day, he is either, sitting courtside at a WNBA game and, mixing it up with Dereck Lively and Steph Curry. We saw him earlier this summer. I think he was playing in an open run with Daniel Gafford, if I'm not mistaken. And then here more recently, he was playing in open runs with like Omax Prosper, Kyrie Irving, a lot of different guys. And then 1 or 2 days ago, he was back at the Mavs facility getting up shots and sporting his headband. Everybody got excited about headband Klay. So he's been everywhere. He seems like he's fully immersed in Mavs culture, and he's trying to, I don't know if he's trying to, but he's very quickly becoming a fan favorite, and he hasn't even stepped on the court with his Mavs jersey yet. So, and on Instagram the other day, he posted a picture on his story where he was watching the Mavs 2011 NBA Finals highlights on YouTube. When they beat LeBron, Wade, and Bosh, Miami Heat, and that got the fan base fired up. So, I mean, how do you feel so far about this? I mean, we know how we think he's going to translate on the court, but how have you liked how he's, fully immersed himself in the culture off the court?
Well, he's doing all the right things off the court right now, I'll tell you what. But, and that, honestly, I wouldn't expect anything less. Klay's a really personable guy. He's really he's a man for the people, I'd like to say. Very down to earth human being, just based off of what I've seen. Granted, I don't know him, but he seems like a really down to earth guy. And honestly, I'm not surprised at all that he has fully immersed himself in Mavs culture, because he did the same thing whenever he was in Golden State. Klay is a guy that's going to give you maximum buy-in. And I think that this is part of that buy-in. So, take from that what you will. Really what everyone's interested in seeing is what he's going to do whenever he actually steps on the court. But, this has all been fun, I would say.
I think you can tell a lot. And I mean, this, obviously there's more to it than this, but just me personally, I feel like you can tell a lot about a person's character and how they are as a person based on how they treat animals. Yeah. And his dog Rocco is unbelievable. Like he reminds, like, the way him and Rocco vibe together reminds me of how I vibe with my super weenie dog Chance. So I don't know. I feel like, and like even earlier this summer, I don't know if you remember when he was seen he was on a beach in Cali, and like he was just hanging out with this random family. Like he just walked up to this random family and was like throwing frisbee and talking to the dad and the mom and playing with the kids and all that. So I mean, I think he's just a guy that he gets along with people no matter where he goes, which might tell us a little bit of something about him, and his relationship with the Golden State Warriors front office that soured, because it seems like you have to really do some stuff the wrong way to get on his bad side and to see a bad side of him. And, that's the only time throughout his entire career, in my opinion, that I've seen or heard anything like that. So I don't know. I think he's going to be not only a good fit on the court, but I think his veteran leadership and his just general care for everybody around him is going to be a morale boost for everybody off the court and in the locker room. I think it's going to be great for the team. I mean, we talk about the basketball fit and the threes and how, he's lost a step defensively, but he can still guard big bodies, all that kind of stuff. And that's great. But the most underrated part of his acquisition to this team is the championship level experience. Him winning 4 titles and adding that to what Kyrie has done in the past. And then adding that to the experience that Luka just got, making it all the way to the finals. And the experience Jason Kidd has, not only as a player, but now as a head coach. I think all of that matters. You compile all that experience and you have enough talent surrounding them, and I think it's going to make a difference for them this year.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think that he will gel seamlessly with this team, and he already is off the court. And, it's not just him. I know we're specifically talking about Klay, but all these guys are making the extra effort. They're being very intentional with building relationships, building trust off the court with each other. And that goes a long ways, especially whenever you're on these, 3 to 4 day road trips where you're traveling the freaking world. Whenever you're on the back end of a back-to-back and you're tired and everything, who can you trust? And, I think that's what all this is about. It's all about building trust. I mean, for God's sake, the guys got together not too long ago and they held their own mini camp. At their own instruction. Like they decided what they were going to do, and I'm pretty sure Klay was a part of that too. So
it was.
Yeah, it almost makes me wonder if he's got doppelgangers, because he does seem to be every freaking where at once. It's really kind of insane.
He is getting his frequent flyer miles.
And I know for a fact that there is a doppelganger. Do you remember the fake Klay?
Yes, yeah, and he got banned. He got banned from Warriors games. He might make a reappearance at American Airlines Center this year.
He's coming, baby. I promise you, he's on his way.
He'll move to Dallas with Klay.
Yeah, he's a Texas native as we speak. That guy's made a whole what's the word? Career out of imitating Klay.
And it's funny because he does resemble Klay a little bit, but it looks like a middle-aged Klay. Very fun. I really do hope he makes an appearance. That would be incredible.
It looks like Klay that's like 45 years old with a beer gut. I mean, that's.
I want to meet him, honestly.
Yeah, dude. People have I've seen videos of people going up and asking for his autograph. Seriously.
Well, and look, before we take off here, DJ, this just came up on my Twitter notifications, and I have to bring it up. The Lakers finally made a move this offseason. They finally made a move. They signed 7-footer Christian Coloco, however you say it. So I don't know. I think the Lakers might win it all now. How do
you spell that?
I think the Koloko. Just how it sounds. Koloko.
Koloko.
He was previously with the Toronto Raptors. And let's see. Oh, wait, no, he hasn't officially signed with the Lakers. My bad. The Lakers are the front runners, along with the Raptors, the Clippers, and the Spurs. So there's still time for the Lakers to screw this up and to not have not
have 3.1 points a game. Yeah. Played in 58 games last year. Man,
this version of the Lakers reminds me so much of the Dirk Nowitzki Twilight Year Mavs, where they had all these big plans. You know, they chased the big fish, they struck out, and then they ended up signing Chris Kaman. A washed Chris Kaman. Dude, it's so good to be on the other side of this stuff for once, man.
Here's the main difference, though, is the Lakers have been just completely insufferable throughout the whole process of this, though. Somehow mediocrity makes the front page over and over and over. I mean, people talk more about the Lakers than they did the Mavericks.
And it will be that way until LeBron James leaves.
Speaking of LeBron, I saw this really funny thing. My wife showed it to me yesterday. It was like a recording of 2K or whatever, and they looked at the bench, and it was Bronny James sitting on LeBron James's lap. I thought that was
okay, Ron. It's okay, Ron. Oh, that's funny. It reminds me of that LeBron was on some show or podcast or something a few weeks ago, and they asked him about, like, hey, have y'all had that conversation about, you know, is he allowed to call you dad? And he's just like, no, absolutely not. Like, if he wants to call me that after we're off the premises, like not on team property, he can do that, but absolutely not when we're when we're on Lakers property, because Daddy, pass me the ball.
Well, first of all, if he's in at all, that's a problem.
You know he will be. They've got to get that publicity from that. Now, it might not be for long, but they're 100% going to put him in the game just so they have that moment right off the bat, and then he might not see the floor for the rest of the season after that. But the
rest of his career. But
then again, their roster is so really lacking. Bad. He might find a place for some minutes. So that's not good for the Lakers. So, but anyway,
might be even worse.
Well, look, guys, we appreciate y'all coming in and listening to another episode of the Mavs Step Back Podcast. Please go like, rate, and subscribe on all your favorite podcast platforms. hit that subscribe button on YouTube, and go leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. If you do that, also leave your social media because that'll automatically enter you for a chance to win future giveaways. Every now and then we'll do Mavs tickets, but for the most part, we'll give away like T-shirts and stuff like that. But again, to throw your name in the hat, go leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and put your social media and, if somebody has won a giveaway before, we take their name out of the hat. So you'll have a little bit better chance. It's not gonna, there's no repeat winners. So it's not a rigged thing. So we choose all that randomly. So be sure to go do that. We appreciate it, y'all. Y'all have a great rest of your weekend, and we will see you sometime next week.
Thanks, guys.